Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. The tsunami and its aftermath were responsible for immense destruction and loss on the rim of the Indian Ocean. The tsunami killed at least 225,000 people from across a dozen countries, with Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Maldives, and Thailand sustaining massive damage. Indonesian officials estimated that the death toll there alone ultimately exceeded 200,000. Historical context. The 2004 earthquake and tsunami combined is the world's deadliest natural disaster since the 1976 Tangshan earthquake. The earthquake was the third most powerful earthquake recorded since 1900. The deadliest known earthquake in history occurred in 1556 in Shaanxi, China, with an estimated death toll of 830,000, though figures from this period may not be as reliable. Early signs and warnings. The first warning sign of a possible tsunami is the earthquake itself. However, tsunamis can strike thousands of kilometers away where the earthquake is felt only weakly or not at all. Also, in the minutes preceding a tsunami strike, the sea sometimes recedes temporarily from the coast, which was observed on the eastern earthquake rupture zone such as the coastlines of Aceh, Phuket Island, and Khao Lak area in Thailand, Penang Island of Malaysia, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This rare sight reportedly induced people, especially children, to visit the coast to investigate and collect stranded fish on as much as 2.5 kilometers, 1.6 miles, of exposed beach, with fatal results. However, not all tsunamis cause this disappearing sea effect. In some cases, there are no warning signs at all. The sea will suddenly swell without retreating, surprising many people and giving them little time to flee. Impact. The tsunami caused severe damage and deaths as far as the east coast of Africa, with the furthest recorded fatality directly attributed to the tsunami at Rui Els, close to Cape Town, 8,000 kilometers, 5,000 miles, from the epicenter. In total, 8 people in South Africa died due to high sea levels and waves. Environmental impact. Beyond the heavy toll on human lives, the Indian Ocean earthquake has caused an enormous environmental impact that will affect the region for many years to come. It has been reported that severe damage has been inflicted on ecosystems such as mangroves, coral reefs, forests, coastal wetlands, vegetation, sand dunes and rock formations, animal and plant biodiversity, and groundwater. Also, the spread of solid and liquid waste and industrial chemicals, water pollution, and the destruction of sewage collectors and treatment plants threaten the environment even further in untold ways. The environmental impact will take a long time and significant resources to assess. According to specialists, the main effect is being caused by the poisoning of the freshwater supplies and of the soil, by saltwater infiltration, and a deposit of a salt layer over arable land. It has been reported that in the Maldives, 16 to 17 coral reef atolls that were overcome by sea waves are without fresh water and could be rendered uninhabitable for decades. Uncountable wells that served communities were invaded by sea, sand, and earth. The aquifers were invaded through porous rock. On the island's east coast, the tsunami contaminated wells on which many villagers relied for drinking water. Economic impact. The level of damage to the economy resulting from the tsunami depends on the scale examined. While the overall impact on the national economies was minor, local economies were devastated. The two main occupations affected by the tsunami were fishing and tourism. Some economists believe that damage to the affected national economies will be minor because losses in the tourism and fishing industries are a relatively small percentage of the GDP. However, others caution that damage to infrastructure is an overriding factor. In some areas, drinking water supplies and farm fields may have been contaminated for years by saltwater from the ocean. The impact on coastal fishing communities and the people living there, some of the poorest in the region, has been devastating, with high losses of income earners as well as boats and fishing gear. In Sri Lanka, artisanal fishery, in which the use of fish baskets, fishing traps, and spears are commonly used, is an important source of fish for local markets. Industrial fishery is the major economic activity, providing direct employment to about 250,000 people. In recent years, the fishery industry has emerged as a dynamic export-oriented sector, generating substantial foreign exchange earnings. Preliminary estimates indicate that 66% of the fishing fleet and industrial infrastructure in coastal regions were destroyed by the wave surges. Other effects. Many health professionals and aid workers have reported widespread psychological trauma associated with the tsunami. Traditional beliefs in many of the affected regions state that a relative of the family must bury the body of the dead, and in many cases, no body remained to be buried. Women in ASEA required a special approach from foreign aid agencies and continue to have unique needs. Humanitarian response. A great deal of humanitarian aid was needed because of widespread damage to the infrastructure, shortages of food and water, and economic damage. Epidemics were of particular concern due to the high population density and tropical climate of the affected areas. The main concern of humanitarian and government agencies was to provide sanitation facilities and fresh drinking water to contain the spread of diseases, such as cholera, diphtheria, dysentery, typhoid, and hepatitis A and hepatitis B. There was also a great concern that the death toll could increase as disease and hunger spread. However, because of the initial quick response, this was minimized. According to USAID, the U.S. has pledged additional funds and long-term U.S. support to help the tsunami victims rebuild their lives. On 9 February 2005, President Bush asked Congress to increase the U.S. commitment to a total of U.S. $950 million. Officials estimated that billions of dollars would be needed. Bush also asked his father, former President George H.W. Bush, and former President Bill Clinton to lead a U.S. effort to provide private aid to the tsunami victims. In August 2006, 15 local aid staff worked on post-tsunami rebuilding were found executed in northeast Sri Lanka after heavy fighting between government troops and the Tamil Tiger rebels, the main umbrella body for aid agencies in the country said.